focused, emotionally tight, and written with faceless narration in mind. No fluff or repetition, just raw narrative progression. I never imagined rock bottom would feel so quiet. No yelling, no breaking plates. Just overdue bills, an empty fridge, and the sound of my own breath echoing through a one-bedroom apartment I could barely afford. After the breakup, everything unraveled fast. My ex took the car, the joint savings, and left me with nothing but a lease I couldn't keep up with. Each day felt heavier than the last, like I was waiting for the final blow to come from the mailbox. That's when Mr. Thomas, my landlord, knocked. I braced myself, clutching the edge of the counter as I opened the door. Instead of demanding payment, he just smiled gently. "You've had a rough time," he said. "Don't worry about this month's rent." I froze, unsure if I heard him right. People don't do things like that. Not for free. But he meant it, or at least that's how it seemed. I didn't know what to say, so I thanked him. Probably too many times. He just waved it off like it was nothing, but that moment stuck with me. It was the first act of kindness I'd felt in months. I started seeing him differently, not just as the guy who collected the rent, but as someone who saw me struggling and didn't look away. He started showing up more after that. Small things. Asking if the pipes were okay, if I needed help moving a box, offering to fix the heater before winter really hit. I told myself he was just doing his job, but deep down, I felt it. The way his eyes lingered when I laughed, the pause in his voice when he asked if I was eating enough. It wasn't overt. It wasn't flirtation, not exactly. Just attention. Warm, focused attention. The kind I hadn't felt since before everything fell apart. I caught myself getting dressed with more intention, brushing my hair before taking out the trash, wondering if he might be outside. That scared me, how quickly I began to crave that acknowledgement. One evening, he brought over coffee. "You look tired," he said. "Figured you could use something warm." I accepted it with a shaky smile, unsure how to receive anything without expecting a cost. He didn't stay long, just stood there for a few minutes, sipping his own, watching the sky turn soft shades of orange and pink. When he left, I stared at the empty mug for an hour. It was subtle. No grand gestures. But somehow he made me feel safe.
Seen.
And in a world where I was barely holding myself together, that kind of presence felt like a life raft. I didn't know then what it would cost me. I just knew that when he looked at me, it didn't feel like pity. It felt like something I could lean on. Something I was beginning to need. It started with late-night talks. Short ones at first, passing comments in the hallway, a question about the boiler, a compliment about my cooking drifting from his open window. Then longer ones, sitting on the porch with cups of tea that turned cold as our words grew warmer. He asked questions no one had asked in a long time. About my dreams, my past, the real reason I left my ex. I told him things I hadn't told anyone. He listened like nothing else existed, but my voice. I should have recognized the shift when I started waiting for his texts, when I replayed our conversations in my head just to feel something again. I blamed the loneliness, the trauma. I told myself I wasn't falling for him, just grateful. But I knew better. The line was thin and blurring fast. One night, after a particularly hard day at work, I came home to find dinner outside my door. No note. Just takeout in a brown bag with my favorite sauce packet folded neatly inside. I didn't even ask how he knew. I just smiled and felt my chest tighten. A few minutes later, he knocked, holding 2 beers like it was the most casual thing in the world. We talked for hours. He told me about his childhood, about his first heartbreak, about the pressure of always being the one people relied on. I saw the cracks in him. Not weakness, just honesty. When I started to cry, he didn't rush to fix it. He just let it happen. Then, without asking, he reached for my hand. His thumb brushed my skin, and the air shifted. He leaned in slow enough for me to pull away. I didn't. When our lips met, it didn't feel like crossing a line. It felt like slipping into something I didn't know I'd been missing. There was no hesitation, no guilt. Just heat and skin and breath tangled in the dark. Afterward, I curled against him, trying to pretend this meant nothing, but he whispered things that clung to my ribs. That I deserved to feel wanted. That he hadn't felt this way in a long time. That I was different. I didn't ask what he meant by different. I didn't ask what came next. I just wanted to believe the lie for one night. That this wasn't complicated. That I could be the exception, not a mistake. The next morning, he made me coffee and kissed my forehead like it was natural, like we'd always done this. I floated through the day, light and buzzing, replaying every second like a teenager again. I thought I'd found something real, quiet, unexpected, but real. I didn't know it was the beginning of a script he'd used before. I didn't know I was already on borrowed time. All I knew was, for the first time in months, I didn't feel broken. I felt chosen. And that feeling became the drug I couldn't stop chasing. The shift was subtle. He stopped replying as fast. Canceled one of our dinners with a vague excuse about paperwork. Said he was overwhelmed with property issues, yet somehow still found time to chat with other tenants. I tried not to overthink it. Told myself I was being insecure. But that gnawing feeling didn't go away. One afternoon, I saw him outside, pacing, phone pressed tight to his ear. His voice was low but sharp. I only caught pieces, something about keeping it together and it's under control. When he saw me watching, he hung up fast and forced a smile. I asked who it was. He said it was a contractor. The lie was too quick, too smooth. Later that week, a woman showed up. Dressed like she didn't live here, but she walked in like she owned the place. I watched from behind my blinds as she argued with him on the front steps. Her hands moved like she knew every version of him. Her voice cracked when she said, "You promised." Again. He looked nervous, but he didn't deny anything. He told me she was his ex, said she was dramatic, jealous, that they were over, but she hadn't let go. I wanted to believe him. I needed to believe him. But something didn't sit right. Her eyes, when she looked at him, they weren't the eyes of someone chasing a fantasy. They were the eyes of someone who'd been lied to by someone she trusted. I waited until he left the next morning, then went into the hallway closet he kept unlocked. I'd never snooped before, but instinct doesn't ask for permission. Buried behind a stack of old manuals and maintenance forms was a box. Inside were photos, him, the woman, and a boy who had his eyes. There was no denying it. They were a family. I stared at the pictures for what felt like hours. The way he held the kid, the way she leaned into him. This wasn't a bitter ex. This wasn't a fling gone wrong. This was a man who walked out of one life and into mine like it cost him nothing. My stomach turned. Every word he'd whispered felt like poison now. I remembered him saying, "I've never felt seen like this before." I thought I was special. I thought I'd pulled someone good out of a bad situation. But it was all part of the performance. He came by that evening with wine, smiling like nothing had shifted. I didn't confront him. Not yet. I needed to know how deep the lie went. So I smiled back. Let him pour the glasses. Let him touch me like we were still writing something beautiful. But inside, everything was unraveling. This wasn't love. This was strategy. He hadn't saved me. He'd chosen me because I was vulnerable, isolated, easy to win over. I wasn't the first. I wasn't different. I was just next. I didn't wait long. The next time he came over, I put the photos on the table without a word. His face didn't register surprise, just irritation, like I'd ruined the timing of some carefully rehearsed plan. He sat down slowly, exhaled, and said her name like it was a burden. "She's my wife," he admitted. "But things have been complicated for a long time." That word again. Complicated. Like it explained everything. Like it excused anything. I asked how long they'd been married. 10 years. I asked if he planned to leave her. He didn't answer. Just stared at the floor like he hoped silence would do the talking. Then came the worst part. He said he didn't mean to hurt me. That he saw something in me. Something he'd been missing. He said being around me made him feel alive. That I gave him something she no longer could. I wasn't flattered. I was sick. He tried to spin it as love. Said maybe we'd met at the wrong time. Maybe someday things could be different. I asked if she knew. If she knew about me, about the dinners, about the nights in my bed. He said she knew enough. And that she wouldn't make a scene if I stayed quiet. That's when everything clicked. The rent waiver. the compliments, the timing. He didn't do those things because he cared. He did them because he saw someone easy to bend. He didn't want love. He wanted control. And I gave it to him, wrapped in gratitude, mistaking attention for affection. He offered to keep helping with bills if I needed time to figure things out. Said he didn't want things to end on bad terms. As if what he'd done wasn't already a complete betrayal. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I just stood up, told him to leave, and watched the man I thought I loved walk out with nothing but a shrug. I packed that night, tossed clothes into bags without folding them, left behind the wine glasses we'd used, the blanket we'd shared, the notes he'd written. All of it felt toxic now, objects soaked in lies. I didn't tell anyone where I was going. I just needed distance. Air that didn't taste like deception. A week later, I signed a new lease with the first paycheck I scraped together. Small studio, old carpet, flickering hallway light, but it was mine. I paid the rent in full. No favors. No loopholes. Just my name on paper, clean and free. I think about him sometimes. Not with longing, just awareness. Like you remember a fire you once stood too close to. I thought he was a lifeline, but he was just another storm disguised as shelter. He said I didn't owe rent. But what he really wanted cost me something deeper. Trust, self-worth, peace. I'll never let someone rent space in me again just because they smiled when I was vulnerable. Let me know if you'd like this adapted into video script format, voiceover cues, or a teaser summary.